was always the Jags. It was always the Jags. It was always the Jags. Always the Jags.
Welcome into Always the Jags, where we talk all things Jaguars, all things Duval. Obviously it's been a very, very trying season for us as Jags fans. But today we're gonna break down our loss against the Eagles. I know it's a little hard to process. If that's tough for you right now too, I'm in the same boat. Still can't really. It's like almost worse that we were so close to winning. I'm like, I almost prefer if we had just lost. Like, I kind of feel like that would be better because it wouldn't feel like we needed to blame poor decision making or poor clock management for us to get the win. But that's where we are right now. So we're going to kind of discuss it. We're going to kind of break it down. And of course, leave your thoughts as always. Do you think the Jaguars should have won that game? What could we have done to win? And what does the future even look like going forward? So we'll try to start with the offense. Just at the beginning of the game, there's no other way to explain it. It was pitiful. I mean, our offensive performance was quite literally, it was putrid. There was nothing that we could hang our hat on as like a good offensive performance. It was bad from the very beginning. I think we had 30 drives in like 15 minutes. And so where does that leave you for the rest of the game? Well, it's really hard to recover from that because, the Eagles go up by 10. And I thought our defense did an okay job of getting after them and keeping them from scoring, right? I think our defense kind of was the one that got us back in this game. And it feels like we're always going back and forth between, like, we just can't play complementary football. It's like either our offense is not doing enough and then our defense has to come in at the last second, or our defense isn't doing enough and our offense has to come in. Like the game against the Packers, I would blame that more on the defense just because when the Jaguars were able to take the lead, the Packers had a back-breaking drive that killed our defense and put the offense on the pressing, and then there was a turnover, and it was just bad. To me, that was kind of like, that was the moment where the defense really let us down. Now, the offense shouldn't have thrown those picks and shouldn't have put us in that position, but it really felt like the defense was the start of that. Like, that was the start of the issue there. Flash forward to right now, against the Eagles, and, our offense couldn't wake up. We couldn't wake up for the longest time. And then finally, we were able to get something going. I think that kind of sparked the defense a little bit when it was like 22-8 and we were able to go down, score, and go for two, which was a good drive. And then the defense got that fumble recovery. And then, it kind of went back and forth until we found ourselves in a position to win it at the end. And we're throwing a jump ball to our third string running back. I mean, like, that was one of those games where, like, I was at a party while it was happening, and I'm almost glad I was at the party because I would have lost my mind if I was watching that entire game, like, play by play. So anyway, sticking with the offense, here's what I don't get for the most part. Trevor led a beautiful, beautiful drive at the end of the Packers game, a lot of two tight end sets, and it looked like he was really starting to build chemistry with Brenton Strange, Evan Ingram, having Tank Bigsby or Travis Etienne, whoever you want on the field, and then Brian Thomas Jr. and I think it was Parker Washington, right? He was leading a great drive. Brenton Strange played 9 snaps after what was arguably his breakout game, where he really showed that he could be a blocker and a runner. And to me, I don't get that. I don't get that at all. Like, as Ryan Nielsen, like, maybe when you're the coordinator, like, your best plays might involve certain personnel, right? But your job is to make sure that your best plays use your best players. That's how good teams make a difference. So that means even if all of your best plays involve 3 wide receiver sets, okay, if Brenton Strange is better than Austin Trammell, which, don't get me wrong, had a good game, Caught more passes than Brian Thomas Jr., which again was a whole nother thing. But if he had a better game than Austin Trammell, why should Brenton Strange not be on the field? If he's better, you should adjust your plays, your two tight end sets to be better. Make them better so that your best players can be on the field. It's not rocket science. Like, and it feels like Press Taylor is making this so much harder than it needs to be. We saw Trevor go down the field and go get a touchdown. Now, I'm not saying every drive would be like that, but he was so in control with that personnel on the field. He was dealing to his guys. And to me, and that two tight end set, because Brenton Strange can catch and block, like he's a really nasty blocker. Now you have the defense can't play box and they can't play zone the whole time because you've got you've got Brenton Strange in there and they don't know if they're going to run or pass, right? So like you have the variety to do almost whatever you want. You can have Parker Washington play outside and let Ingram play from the slot like Kirk used to do, because Ingram is kind of like a bigger version of Kirk, of Christian Kirk. And yet he played 9 snaps. And again, like, and Devin Duvernay is out too. So I guess Austin Trammell was the next guy up. And again, hats off to him. He did have a good game. But my question is, why are we not using our best players? That's the question I have for Ryan Nielsen and Press Taylor. Why do you refuse to use our best players? Because most of the time, our best players, they're not up for debate. It's not hard to figure out. It's a very clear answer. There are some players that are our best players, and there are some that are not. Why are you not using them? That's the part that I'm not getting. And they got to answer that. They got to answer to somebody to give us that answer, because that's not acceptable. Our best players should be on the field. So now let's move on to the defense, I guess. I'll talk about that play at the end, more towards the end of the video. Because the defense, I think, for as high powered of the Eagles are, they played a solid game. Solid game. I don't know if it was Ryan Nielsen's scheme this time. I don't know if he was still switching players out like a hockey team, which he probably was, but it was solid, right? The Eagles have a really good offense. Saquon Barkley is a beast. Here's the thing that I can't get over. The defense had a chance to turn in a great performance, and they just got beat on the flukiest plays. It's 3rd and 19. 3rd and 19. And the Eagles are in the red zone, and you force a 3rd and 19. That should be handoff, hit him 6 yards, 4th and 14. Okay, kick the field goal. Take the 3 points. They let Saquon Barkley score on a 3rd and 19. What is that? There was no one there for the edge. I don't know what Andre Sisco was expecting. There was no one there. They let him convert a 3rd and 19 to a touchdown. Now, I'm a little more forgiving on the 3rd and 22 play where he hit Devontae Smith for a score. Because that was just an excellent catch. Kept 2 feet in bounds, grabbed it with one hand. I mean, there's only so many players that can do something to beat that, right? But again, 3rd and 19, 3rd and 22. We let them convert those plays into touchdowns. That should, like, the Saquon Barkley run should have never happened. On 3rd down, no running back should be able to pick up 19 yards on your team. Same for the throw to Devontae Smith. It was a great play, but our pass rush should have gotten there a little quicker. And that coverage was, he let him get behind him, basically. I don't know who that was in coverage. I don't know if that was Campbell. I don't know if that was Darby. I don't know if that was Brown. But like that's 8 points. Right? Yeah. Because if they kick field goals, that's 4 off for each time. Now, fortunately, well, actually, no, it wasn't, because Nick Sirianni kept going for 2. And that was the thing that, like, I still can't wrap my head around once we get to the end. Because, like, with all of this absurdity throughout this game, first of all, well, actually, before I go into that, this game was much better than the Colts and Vikings game. So flexing it was a poor decision because this game came right down to the end and it had some crazy like highlight reel plays in it. So whoever did that, that's on you. Secondly, that Trayvon Walker fumble recovery, not gonna lie, that didn't really look like a fumble. It kind of looked like he was down when the ball came out. But the Jaguars haven't been catching a lot of breaks this year. Let's be real. So we don't have to be that upset. And it doesn't even matter because we couldn't take advantage of it when the cards were all aligned for us to go down there and take advantage of, kind of like, I'm not going to say the gift, but I mean, if the Eagles can be undefeated with calls going their way every single time, we can snatch one game with the call going our way. And we couldn't do that because we lined up for our last play. Now, on the first play from scrimmage, when we got the ball back after. So, first of all, Nick Sirianni going for two over and over again put them in a terrible position. Put the Eagles in a terrible position. Put us in a great position because then we could, like, Trevor had a chance to go down and win the game, right? Why Nick Sirianni kept going for two, I don't know. The fact that we couldn't take advantage of it is the part that's supremely frustrating. Because then Jake Elliott, he goes to kick a field goal. And there are so many times where Nick Sirianni could have kicked a field goal and iced the game on a fourth down. But he went for it and didn't get it, and then we got the ball back. And because if he had kicked it on, I think the Eagles had 2 turnovers on downs on fourth down. So it kind of reminds me of like when the Jaguars could have put away the Patriots, but we didn't and allowed them to kind of like come back and get into it. But here we are at the end of the game. Trevor throws the pass. Now, to me, that first pass, that was pass interference. So, like, he didn't catch it, but that should have been called for pass interference. The second play from scrimmage, and then the third play, finally, we got that call on Evan Ingram that was clearly pass interference. Trevor hooks up with Austin Tremmel for a nice gain, and he gets out of bounds. We are in business on Philly's 13-yard line with 1:46 left, and the clock doesn't start until we start our play. And Pete Prisco and Tony Baselli talked about this a lot, that like technically you want that matchup of a running back on a linebacker. To me, based upon the way our defense had been playing, that had been so unpredictable, I don't even think we score if we I don't even think we win if Dearness Johnson catches that. If he catches that, the Eagles go down the field and they're going to go get a field goal because we left 1:46 on the clock. So that's the part that I didn't really get because like we need the touchdown, right? And I'm not saying that we should have worked the clock necessarily more. Like to me, this play call isn't even about, hey, you got to work the clock a little bit more. To me, this play call is just about, yo, the Eagles have been expecting pass this entire time because we've been passing it straight for the past few downs. They're playing zone. They're playing deep safety. Let's run the ball. We did 4 straight passes, right? We've got plenty of time to run the ball. Eagles can lay on us if they want to. We're not going to use 1:46 on one run play. You have enough, because I think it was different too because we didn't have any timeouts. I think if Doug had a timeout, he would have felt better about running the ball and then taking one based upon how many yards you get and how far the clock ran. Because it would have been really tough if we ran it for no gain on first down and then Trevor had to spike it on second down, and then now we had third and fourth down to pretty much take shots for the end zone or the first down market. So I could see how that could have worked. That could have ended poorly in our favor. However, none of that is bad as the way that it actually ended with the interception. And that ball just shouldn't have been thrown at that point. I think Dearness Johnson stopped his route, and Trevor thought he was going to keep going, and then Nakobe Dean ran the route for him. But he was covered. He was covered well. The only person that could have got up and got that was DeAndre Hopkins in his prime. So that's an error on Trevor Lawrence's part. And that's where the ball is supposed to go on that play. He really wanted to score. I can't guarantee it, and I don't think we had been running the ball all day. But I feel like if we ran the ball there, we would have picked up at least 5 yards. And that would have kept the Eagles on their toes. They didn't know whether to expect run or pass. Then on that next play, I would have hit a quick slant out to Ingram. Maybe now you're down to 3. And just let Trevor run it in for the touchdown. Same way he did it with the 5 yards out. Like, to me, you have a nice there's a sequence of plays that you can run there. Not having any timeouts, I think, is what scared Doug and ended him going for the run on that play. But it's again so close and so far. I honestly didn't think this game was going to end up being that close, especially the way we got blown out by a team like the Bears. But the Jaguars are a handful. It's the same narrative all season. We are literally a handful from being 6-2. And I don't think we have the hardest schedule in the NFL, but I think our schedule was a lot harder than people give us credit for. Again, our first 4 teams we played were playoff teams. Then we get the Colts. The next 3 games we should have won. So not beating the Bears was, and then the next 4 games after that, these are all playoff contenders for this year, because we faced the Eagles, and then we had the Packers, and then we had the Eagles, and now we got to go play the Vikings and the Lions. All playoff contenders of this year. So that's 4 playoff teams, a little 3-game break, and then 4 more playoff teams. And sure, the teams that we lost to probably aren't going to make the playoffs. Obviously, the Browns look like the worst team in the league, and the Dolphins finally got Tua back, but it might be too late. Had Tua been healthy, we'd be talking about the Dolphins way differently. They would be a playoff team. We would have lost to a playoff team. Again, the Texans, playoff team. Bills, we got slaughtered by a playoff team. The Browns game, there's still no explanation for why we should have lost that one. But here we are. And I'm looking at I don't know if Trent Baalke would have done anything at the trade deadline, because there were so many good options there. Looking at the trades that did materialize, I did not think Preston Smith was going to be available for a 7th round pick. If I'm Trent Baalke, I'm all over that, because that is exactly what our defense needs. An experienced, really good 3rd pass rusher who's not Eric Armstead. Eric Armstead, please play 3 technique. Please, I am begging you. He was in an interview earlier, and he was saying, like, I feel like I've been doing what's been asked of me, and it's 3 technique. You got to play 3 technique. You're good at 3 technique. Please play 3 technique. Because every time he's on the field at defensive end, he never gets any pressure. Anytime. And we take our best players off the field because of it. The only time I would let him go to edge, is if Trayvon Walker switches with him, and after he's played 2 downs of 3 technique. Then I'd say, if you play 3 technique on 2 downs in a row, and it's 3rd and long, you can switch with Eric Armstead. You can go to big end, he'll come inside, and we'll put someone else at 3 technique. But we're keeping him on the field. So, because that would have been the exact play to bring in Preston Smith too. And if I had traded for Preston Smith, I'd just be like, yeah, you're going to stay at 3 technique, because I'm going to put Preston Smith. Preston Smith is a better at rusher at the edge than Eric Armstead is. And looking at some of the trades around the league, I'm like, I don't know, if I'm Trent Baalke and I want to save my job, I don't know if I go for broke and just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to make some trades, see if it means that we can pull off a win and start winning. Like, it's really funny how, like, the narrative is like contending teams are the ones that have to trade for players, and non-contending teams have to sell off because you want to gear up for a run. But no one ever thinks of like, hey, I think I'm close, but I just know what we need and we can turn this around. Or GMs don't really think about it that way. Like, hey, if I'm going to go out, let me go out with a bang. I'll sell my future assets to bring in these players mid-season and see if we can make something happen. Because I mean, I look at some of the trades that were done. I'm like, with Christian Kirk going down, I wouldn't have been mad trading Gabe Davis and something else to get Deontay Johnson up in here. Parker Washington. That would have been fantastic. Give exactly what the Ravens gave, a fifth. Marshawn Lattimore happily gave up a third and a fourth, and I think it was a fifth in exchange. I probably would have just given up the third and the fourth. No need to exchange the fifth and the seventh, right? Because Marshawn Lattimore could play right opposite Tyson Campbell, and they're both hurt, right? They both get hurt often, but you know you got two backups in Darby and Brown, so you know you have depth, right? That's the whole point of that move. Um, because with Cam Robinson gone, you free up a lot of cat space, first of all. And I think Trent Baalke probably ended up getting fleeced by the Vikings for Cam Robinson because I doubt that we got much from him. Um, but so like when we go back to the Marshawn Lattimore trade, you could have traded the Saints. I mean, I like Devin Lloyd. He can say I think we're going to switch to a lot of three linebacker sets, so I think Devin Lloyd's going to stay on the field. Um, so there's really not any other assets that I would have traded away to try to bring in Marshawn Lattimore. If the Panthers were okay with taking Gabe Davis, I definitely would have traded him to bring in Deontay Johnson, or I would have used him to try to trade for the Saints since they lost Rashid Rice. If I was going to bring in Marshawn Lattimore, um, but yeah, I definitely would have brought in Marshawn Lattimore for a third and a fourth, especially because the Jaguars got an extra third and a fourth from the Vikings in a great trade that brought us Brian Thomas Jr. And then a seventh for Preston Smith? Are you kidding me? There's no downside to that at all. Not even close. There's not like the Steelers got so good in that one move. I am so supremely jealous. There was literally no downside to trading a seventh round pick for a guy who already has 3 sacks on the year. He's going to throw into your rotation. That is all upside. That is completely being fleeced. I don't even know why the Packers traded him because the Packers are a contending team. So, and again, some of those moves are things that I wanted to do over the offseason to get Marshawn Lattimore. I mean, I would have preferred if we had L'Jarius Sneed and traded because he would have been less expensive. It would have been a third and a fifth instead of a third and a fourth. But Jerry and Jones is pretty good. He's playing pretty well as a rookie. So again, but I don't know which of those games we would have had to win. Like if we had 3 wins, would Trent Baalke have considered it? If we had 4 wins, would that have made us buyers? I don't know. But it's another lost season because I think the Jaguars I think overall, if I'm gonna say how I assess this season, I think the Jaguars overestimated their talent and they're I think they're overestimating their talent. It's just that simple. The coordinators created plays that they really like, and they have not been able to create plays that play to the strengths of what we have. It's just that simple. The strengths of Trevor Lawrence, like Press Taylor doesn't understand Trevor Lawrence enough to create plays that really, really benefit him, unlike what's going on with Jaden Daniels, unlike what Brian Florence is doing with the Vikings defense, because sometimes you can take what you're given, what the GM brings you. And again, I don't know if that's a disconnect between the GM and the coach, but sometimes you can take what he gives you and you can make it better. Sometimes you have to deal with the hand that you dealt. You have to deal with the hand that you got, right? And Brian Florence doesn't have a lot to work with with the Vikings. Like they have a lot of aging players and a lot of veterans. But he's making it work because he knows what he has and he knows what guys excel. And it feels like Press Taylor is telling guys and Ryan Nielsen are trying to get guys to do things that they're either not good at or I'm not even going to say not comfortable with because some of them probably think they're comfortable with it, but they're just not being put in the best position to succeed. And that's just the truth. And that's like people are wondering, like, what's the difference? How do you make sometimes it can take just one coordinator. Because again, the Vikings defense last year was bad. They brought in Brian Florence, now it's one of the top defenses in the league, and they lost Danielle Hunter. So I'm not going to say that like one person is going to come in and fix everything, but you just need one person who understands what each player can do best and who can craft plays to the player's strengths for everybody, every single player on the field. Because right now, Press Taylor isn't doing that. And that's why, people like Prisco are suggesting bringing in Ben Johnson, because in Ben Johnson's offense, again, the Lions haven't really had like this. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown has always played in the slot. He's not like this alpha dog wide receiver. Like their weapons, Sam Laporta, he did so great, partially because he was drafted, but partially because he Ben Johnson studied him, and when he crafts plays, he's putting his players in the best position. He studied Jerry Goff and what he does well, and he replicated that on his cue sheet. Instead of, hey, here's what I like and here's what I think works. I want you to get good at doing this. It's no, you're good at doing this, so this is how my plays will fit you. This is how it's going to work. So that's why I think after the season, there's no way the Jaguars don't clean house. Um, I don't think it matters where we end up. Draft picks, a lot of people in my Jaguars chats are talking about tanking at this point. Um, I wouldn't be mad if we end up with Travis Hunter. Not gonna lie, that would kind of solve two of our biggest issues at once. Like, imagine having him as your cornerback one or wide receiver two. I still think Brian Thomas Jr. is wide receiver one. And I think, like, if I had to choose, Travis Hunter would be on the field for all of my defensive plays as a cornerback. And then he would come on the field for a package of plays as a wide receiver, right? Um, And I think that's mainly because I think I can keep him, because again, the whole idea is the defense to get off the field. So if I think I can keep him fresh by having the defense get off the field, and on running plays, he wouldn't need to be on the field. If you're running the ball, he doesn't need to come out there. But if you're doing three wide receiver sets, bring him out, let him play wide receiver two, and have Christian Kirk move back into the slot. So I think Christian Kirk is going to stay with the team as well. He brings a lot of versatility for us. There's so many question marks about this team, and I think it starts with the coaching staff, and I think it starts with overestimating your talent. And I think that's just, if you ask me where the Jaguars went wrong this season, that's what they did. I think they overestimated guys and thought they could do things that they actually couldn't. And the problem that's holding us back is the coordinators are unwilling to adjust the plays to make it work. So do with that what you will. Thank you for joining us on this melancholy episode of It Was Always the Jags. Hopefully things will get better, but probably not until Roger Goodell is calling out with the fourth overall pick. The Jaguars are selecting Travis Hunter, cornerback, wide receiver from Colorado State, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong on that. Feel free to check me. But until next time, remember, it was always the Jags.